Joining us now to look at Week 5 of the NFL, senior NFL writer at the Boston Globe, Ben Volin. Ben, good morning. How we doing?
The Patriots are doing great today. They're 5-0. Their opponent yesterday, the Redskins, they're not doing so well today.
How embarrassing was it for that Washington organization to see all of those Patriots fans in the building? I mean, Brady, Belichick, even Belichick was paying them compliments. It must have been humiliating for Washington.
I think a normal team that has maybe a sense of humility may have been a little embarrassed, but I think for Daniel Snyder, he's just happy to see fans in the seats. And there were people there yesterday spending money on beer and parking and food, and I think that's really what's most important for the Redskins there. They're used to these takeovers at this point. It's a really sad state of affairs what's going on with Washington. Tom Brady this morning estimated the crowd as 70-30 Patriots, and he's probably not that far off. It was wild. I haven't seen, the Patriots usually travel well and have a big national fan base, but I haven't seen a stadium takeover like that since the game in 2016 in Cleveland. That was Brady's first game back from his suspension. This was just, the big road trip for all the Patriots fans, a total takeover, probably a very easy ticket to get. And really just a sad state of affairs for where the Redskins are right now, what used to be one of the cornerstone franchises of the NFL.
Did you hear rumors that the organization leaked that footage, leaked those video clips to grease the skids to fire Jay Gruden last week?
I did hear that. I can't confirm or deny it, but it would not surprise me to see the Redskins pull something like that. And firing Jay Gruden today was another classic Dan Snyder move. They could have done it after the game yesterday. They could have done it, at a normal time this morning. Instead, they call him in at 5 a.m., wake him up and fire him before the sun rises. Just a complete clown show there, completely unprofessional. And Jay Gruden is not the problem there. The fish rots from the head in Washington. And you look at the list of coaches that Snyder's had, and they always bring in a guy with a great football reputation, and that person always leaves with the reputation in tatters. It's just such a mismanaged organization from the top. And firing Jay Gruden does not fix anything. They need drastic changes there. They need a house cleaning, and unfortunately, it's not going to happen because the person that needs to be cleaned out is the owner.
Ben Volin joins us from the Boston Globe, senior NFL columnist. You knew that early in the season, even though the Colts had lost Andrew Luck, the season was not lost. What gave you optimism on the Colts?
What's ironic about Andrew Luck retiring after getting beaten up so badly is that the Colts finally have a really good roster and a fantastic offensive line. And last year they protected him well. He took the fewest sacks in the NFL, and I think Jacoby Brissett's a lot of people than people gave him credit for. This kid's not just a backup. The Colts have called him a top 20 NFL quarterback, and I know he's not completely lighting it up, but he's really leading the team and being a great on-field leader and winning games and just showing a lot of toughness out there. He's been their leader all spring and summer long, so when Andrew Luck retired, it really didn't throw the team for a loop because he hadn't really been a part of the team. I think Frank Reich is an unbelievable coach. This is a guy who, obviously, as a quarterback, was Mr. Backup. He had that big comeback win when he was the Bills' backup quarterback in the playoffs, and then winning a Super Bowl with Nick Foles, which everyone was counting the Eagles out that postseason, and they went and lit it up with a backup quarterback. And now here he is again with his quote unquote backup Jacoby Brissett, and these guys just don't flinch. So they've got a terrific offensive line, a great defense. Jacoby Brissett's an ascending young player, and Frank Reich is just the perfect coach for that situation.
The way that the Dallas Cowboys crumbled yesterday, falling behind by 28 points, does that suggest to you that they are pretenders when we talk about Super Bowl-type teams?
I do believe they're pretenders. It's still a long way, and look, one loss in October is not going to sink this team, but I have questions about Dak Prescott, and I think the Cowboys do too because they haven't agreed to that contract extension with him that they've talked about for so long, and you can't afford to. I know the Packers have done well in Dallas over the years, but yeah, you can't go down by 4 touchdowns at home, and I just don't think Dak Prescott is the type of thrower that can bring your team back like that. That's a team that needs to play from ahead, that needs to run the ball and feed Ezekiel Elliott. They're still right there in the mix in the NFC, and like I said, one loss in October won't sink them, but they're not the darlings by any stretch, and I'm still, even in that division, I still think the Eagles are probably the class of that division. And it's a very tough conference in the NFC right now. Those teams out west are really showing something so far. Big test tonight for Jimmy G and the 49ers as well. But, yeah, I think the Cowboys are just one of the teams. They're definitely not head and shoulders above the rest of the competition.
Rodgers and the Packers have won a Super Bowl together. They went 15-1 another year. But I'm wondering if this Packers team isn't the best one that Rodgers has been surrounded by. Maybe doesn't have the high upper echelon star power, but feels like they're really balanced. Do you think this could be the best roster Rodgers has had in Green Bay?
It might be one of the best defenses they've had. They spent a ton of money and resources buying free agents, using first-round picks on defenses, and really trying to retool this thing on the fly. And that doesn't always work because sometimes it can be tough making the new pieces fit together. But I think the defense is really kind of carrying the day right now because you look at Aaron Rodgers' numbers, every week they're pretty pedestrian. And I think he and Matt LaFleur are still kind of working out the kinks a little bit on offense. But yesterday was a big statement win for them, putting up 34 on the road. No question that the Packers look to be an ascending team. And I thought they were a little bit pretenders to start the year when they were 3-0, but really struggling. But it's a good sign for their defense that the team can keep winning, even though Aaron Rodgers isn't completely lighting it up like we're used to seeing. So I think the Packers do have a lot of balance, but that's going to be a tough division too. We're counting out the Minnesota Vikings, I think a lot of us, but they had a big statement win over the Giants yesterday, and that's still an excellent defense. And I think Matt Patricia and the Lions are surprising some people this year. They're 2-1-1 and have looked pretty good, though, and they played the Chiefs right down at the end in that game a couple weeks ago. So, yes, I think the Packers are looking very good right now, but they're in a very tough division this year.
Ben Volin joins us from the Boston Globe, senior NFL writer. In your NFL notes column, you had noted that Dan Quinn's seat is getting hot. Now, after yesterday's debacle, yet another one where Deshaun Watson and the Texans just run up the score, basically. How hot is the seat of Dan Quinn?
He might be on fire today, literally. He might have to get out the fire extinguisher and douse him out today. Arthur Blank's not going to fire him now, but they better show some drastic improvements in all phases, or else Dan Quinn might not finish out the season. When you're a defensive coach, and you're putting up, your opponent's putting up 53 points on you, that is not a good sign. And, Dan Quinn's seat was already very hot entering the season. They weren't able to capitalize on the Super Bowl a couple of years ago. They missed the playoffs last year. Then when a coach is replacing all three of his coordinators, offense, defense, and special teams in the offseason, there's a lot of pressure on him to win. And it's just looking ugly in Atlanta right now. They have a lot of talent, especially on the defensive side of the ball. For whatever reason, it's just not clicking. After sinking $100 million guaranteed into Matt Ryan and $66 guaranteed into Julio Jones this offseason, the Falcons just look, really out of sorts right now. So Dan Quinn and the Falcons, they better start stringing together several wins, or else the Falcons will probably be looking for a new coach next year.
The Buffalo Bills give up just a touchdown yesterday on the road to Tennessee to move to 4-1 with a 14-7 win. It's not pretty, but the Bills are getting it done. And last week, they really held the Patriots in check for most of that game as well. Did not come out with a win. But is the Bills' defense so good that it can keep the Bills winning all season long?
Absolutely. The Bills' defense is definitely legit, and especially when they face a quarterback like Marcus Mariota, or the Bills have the NFC East, so they're going to play the Redskins. They're going to play Dak Prescott. They're going to frustrate, unless you're an elite quarterback like Tom Brady, who did get frustrated against the Bills as well. Unless you're an elite quarterback, the Bills are really going to frustrate you and give you a long afternoon. And Josh Allen has a ways to go. I think he's the wild card here. If he can minimize the turnovers and move the chains a little bit, and the Bills are a team they only need like 19 or 21 points to win. And yesterday they didn't even get that much, and they were still able to win just because they shut down Marcus Mariota. But, I don't necessarily believe in the Bills' offense, but they're 4-1 right now, and that defense can carry them. And, they're not going to win the division, but they're a wild card team right now, and that's a defense that no one's going to want to face throughout the season.
Finally, Ben, what was your feeling seeing the Mason Rudolph hit, seeing him walking off that field, and how do you think the league looks at that?
It's a terrible look for the league. It's a one of those wince-inducing hits. You hate to see that. I've never seen a guy have his face mask taken off on the field for them to treat the player like that before. And then seeing him wobbling off the field, I know there's a lot of back and forth right now, a lot of finger pointing about, was the team at fault for the cart not being ready, or was the cart operator? Like, what happened there? I don't know, but it's a terrible optic for the NFL to have Mason Rudolph staggering off the sideline. I know the team said he wanted to walk off the field, but I don't think he was in any condition to do that. At least it's not like the old days where, and by the old days, I mean just a few years ago, where guys would take those hits and they weren't always caught, and we'd see them staggering on the field and staying in the game. At least, this wasn't one of those situations. But, the NFL is constantly battling the PR fight about head issues and CTE, and seeing your quarterback like Mason Rudolph get knocked out cold yesterday, that's not going to help the NFL there.
Ben Volin, senior NFL writer, Boston Globe. Follow him on Twitter for the latest. Week number 5 of the NFL, at Ben Volin. Great stuff, buddy. As always, it's fun to catch up, man. Thank you.